52 agonizing days of dead ends and echoing silence. That is how long it has been since Nancy Guthrie was swallowed by the dark morning hours of February 1st, 2026, vanishing right out of her Tucson residence. People immediately jumped to the most obvious conclusions about her fate. Most pictured a brutal home invasion, a desperate fight for survival, and absolute mayhem behind closed doors. However, fresh forensic discoveries are painting a startlingly foreign picture. Those red stains discovered within the walls of Nancy Guthrie's property whisper a narrative that absolutely nobody saw coming. It completely shatters the theory of a frantic, messy brawl. It reveals an even darker nightmare. Utter dominance, chilling exactness, and incredibly intentional steps. Furthermore, the exact spot where detectives located those droplets completely upends our understanding of the 16 agonizing minutes spanning from her security camera's sudden blackout to the very last beat her pacemaker transmitted. Traces of bodily fluids were eventually spotted inside Nancy Guthrie's house. However, they were absolutely not scattered wildly across multiple rooms. They certainly were not found near the sleeping quarters, which is exactly where Savannah Guthrie claimed her mother was snatched from during the dead of night. They missed the cooking spaces and the family lounge completely. Instead, they sat isolated in one incredibly telling spot that exposes exactly how the intruder extracted Nancy from her sanctuary. A highly regarded forensic stain specialist, boasting an impressive resume of testimonies across 7 different states as well as federal proceedings, took a close look at these findings. His ultimate determinations completely obliterate the foundational theories that law enforcement heavily relied upon since the dawn of this entire inquiry. According to his professional assessment, the initial optics were entirely deceiving. This extraction was thoroughly mapped out, flawlessly executed, and carried out by someone possessing deeply unsettling expertise. Our presentation today draws solely from open source records, professional breakdowns, deep dive journalism, brought to you by Ashley Banfield from News Nation, alongside properly released police documents. Every single person remains legally blameless until a judge or jury decrees otherwise. Please note that several points covered here represent professional deductions drawn from crime scene traces and potential theoretical timelines. So who exactly was Nancy Guthrie? Nancy Anner. Guthrie entered the world on June 24th, 1941, right there in Tucson, Arizona. For 84 incredible years, she proudly maintained her autonomy within the neighborhood she utterly adored. Most recognize her as the parent of Savannah Guthrie, a prominent host over on the NBC Network's Today Show. Yet to her local friends, Nancy stood out for her rich personal journey, brilliant intellect, self-sufficiency, and deeply guarded personal boundaries. Even at 84 years of age, she resided solo at her East Kalai-Tumacacori property, nestled deeply within the Catalina foothills. The woman handled her own transportation to medical visits and flawlessly orchestrated her daily affairs. Relatives constantly praised her brilliant cognitive state, insisting that their mother absolutely never would have strolled away aimlessly. Dusk soon settled on January 31st, 2026. Nancy's son-in-law, Tommaso, brought her back to her residence right near 10 at night, following a lovely family get-together. The elderly lady marched up to her entrance, turned the key, crossed the threshold, and tucked herself in. A few short hours later, she simply vanished. By 5:52 the following morning on February 1st, desperate calls from companions went completely unanswered. Loved ones eventually rushed over, only to discover crimson drops painting the exterior steps, a completely neutralized security lens, and chilling recorded clips featuring a disguised shadow creeping through the pitch black. Over the past several weeks, public obsession remained heavily fixated upon those outdoor stains pooling on Nancy's porch, tracking those tiny red dots trailing straight down her entry path, and endlessly debating the sinister implications they carried. Meanwhile, a crucial fragment of the investigative puzzle was deliberately kept out of the limelight. Law enforcement actively guarded a terrifying truth that the general populace remained completely blind to. The bleeding never actually originated on the exterior patio. It began strictly indoors. We are about to plunge headfirst into unpacking this massive bombshell and dissecting how it permanently rewrites the narrative of Nancy's tragic fate. Make sure to smash that subscribe button for Crime Uncovered and ring the bell so you never miss a single update regarding this ongoing mystery. Our channel relentlessly hunts down the tiny clues that shift entire paradigms. We deliver the authentic forensic narratives alongside the hardcore professional breakdowns that shatter cold files wide open. Because today, the precise indoor spot where investigators mapped out those droplets absolutely turns this entire case upside down. Let us unpack these earth-shattering findings. Ever since February 1st, 2026, a singular glaring mystery has relentlessly tormented the investigative team. What truly unfolded within the walls of Nancy Guthrie's private sanctuary, while surveillance definitively captured a disguised prowler creeping up to her entrance at exactly 1:47 in the morning. We realized the lens went completely dead. We also confirmed that internal motion detectors tripped deep within the residence at exactly 2:12 in the morning. Medical records confirm Nancy's heart device transmitted its absolute final pulse precisely at 2:28 in the morning, leaving a terrifying 16-minute void. The ultimate question remains, what horrors transpired within that specific 16-minute gap? In which specific room did the nightmare actually kick off? By what means did this intruder transport Nancy from her mattress? All the way to the threshold, historically everyone presumed a brutal altercation. They pictured a desperate scuffle inside the sleeping quarters, Nancy valiantly fighting back before the home invader violently overpowered her. This supposedly left a wake of pure destruction and brute trauma. Yet the forensic drops paint an entirely contradictory picture uncovered by the brilliant journalistic legwork of News Nation's Ashley Banfield. By meticulously cultivating high-level contacts intimately connected to the police squad, she officially confirmed that bodily fluids were indeed left inside Nancy Guthrie's walls. However, investigators found zero traces near her mattress. Absolutely nothing scattered down the adjoining corridors, and completely lacked the messy trails indicative of a frantic cat-and-mouse pursuit. The stains were restricted entirely to the immediate foyer space, just behind the main entry, and their specific droplet formation matched the exterior splatters flawlessly. They documented the exact same perpendicular trajectories, mirrored that unsmudged aesthetic, and noted identical traits. The terrifying crimson trail literally originates right within the primary vestibule. From there, it bleeds directly across the doorway's bottom seal, marching straight down the exterior concrete path, ultimately terminating exactly where a getaway car would logically be idling. This marks the absolute premiere of these explosive details, hitting mainstream media, instantly sparking a tidal wave of urgent inquiries. If a violent ambush actually occurred near her bed, why on earth are the sleeping quarters completely devoid of biological evidence? Assuming the assailant pulled her lifeless body across the residence, how do you explain the total absence of a smear trail connecting her back rooms to the foyer? Provided there was actually a chaotic physical brawl, what accounts for those gravity-fed, perfectly round, completely unblemished crimson spots? Hoping to unravel these frustrating paradoxes, Ashley Banfield reached out to Dr. Peter Valentine, an esteemed academic leader commanding the Forensic Science Department over at the University of New Haven. This brilliant academic has sworn under oath as a fluid dynamics specialist across 7 separate jurisdictions, plus high-stakes federal trials. His ultimate conclusions after dissecting the crime scene photos are simultaneously deeply enlightening and profoundly nightmare-inducing. 16 agonizing minutes flipped this world upside down, a haunting tale told through crimson trails left behind at the scene. Forensic expert Dr. Valentine classified these red marks as passive drops plummeting straight down, strictly from gravity without external pressure. We aren't looking at high-velocity spatter or chaotic struggle trails, but slow, methodical drops revealing a chillingly unhurried timeline. Everything felt incredibly calculated because fleeing suspects always leave elongated trails pointing clearly toward their escape route. Dragging victims creates distinct smears, while an active brawl inevitably leaves chaotic footprints, tracking right through the fresh floor puddles. Investigators found zero chaos here. Perfectly round pools suggest the bleeding source hovered overhead and moved at a sluggish pace. Nobody trampled through these pristine drops, and crucially, Dr. Valentine noticed specific formations he labeled as secondary satellite spatter. These minuscule flecks splash outward whenever fresh drops plummet directly into a puddle already pooled on the ground. Such distinct formations only appear if the bleeding subject stays frozen in one spot, long enough for a puddle to gather. One solitary tear hits the floorboards quickly, followed by another striking the exact same spot to trigger a miniature splash. Microscopic specks scatter outward, and finding this specific physical evidence unlocks a massive breakthrough. The kidnapper halted at that entryway for a heavily prolonged period, ditching any urgency to stand completely still, per Dr. Valentine. Pausing at that doorway demanded extra moments likely to pry open the heavy entrance or shift grip before vanishing entirely. While the assailant lingered, red fluid rained down, painting a highly disturbing psychological picture. Whoever snatched this helpless victim felt zero panic, took their sweet time, and executed everything flawlessly. Total dominance defined his actions, leading us straight into a highly contested internet debate. Did these drops leak directly from the victim, or did a saturated blunt instrument leave the trail as the suspect retreated? Dr. Valentine completely dismantled the weapon theory, mainly because an inanimate object will rapidly run out of fluid while traveling. Weapons hold limited liquid volume, meaning the gaps between falling drops would widen significantly, yet the tragic stains scattered everywhere remained completely uniform. We don't see those widening gaps. Instead, the evidence points directly toward an actively hemorrhaging human body rather than a coded tool. The sheer quantity pooled across interior and exterior zones proves this leaked straight from Nancy, an awful reality confirmed by Sheriff Nanos. Genetic profiling erased lingering identity doubts, pivoting the real mystery toward interpreting this macabre trail, which perfectly highlights Dr. Valentine's expertise. Creating perfectly rounded puddles demands an absolutely unobstructed vertical plunge right from the open wound down to the solid floorboards. Thick fabrics or random obstacles couldn't have soaked up the mess. The crimson rain plummeted completely unimpeded. Assuming the facial region sustained trauma, that specific body part must have dangled freely enough to allow a straight downward plunge. Flawless geometry proves the dripping wound hovered exactly perpendicular to the ground, forcing us to visualize the terrifying posture. Had the victim strolled willingly, her injured face would align with her feet, dropping a steady stream right between her own toes. However, security cameras captured an ominously disguised intruder, creeping straight up toward this peaceful suburban residence. Savannah's harrowing testimony confirmed the victim was snatched from slumber at midnight, backed up by internal sensors tripping in darkness. Digital logs clearly indicated an unknown entity prowling the hallways, firmly ruling out the elderly woman wandering voluntarily. She was kidnapped against her will, begging the question of what Carey method produced this exact stain sequence. Journalist Ashley Banfield crafted a compelling hypothesis concluding the brutal invader likely hoisted the captive over their shoulder. This specific posture leaves her bruised skull dangling backward, ensuring any facial hemorrhage rains a steady, crimson line directly trailing the kidnapper. Gravity pulls the liquid straight down behind the moving assailant, keeping the gruesome trail completely safe from being trampled by his boots. Hitting the main entryway forced a total standstill since manipulating that massive wooden barrier while balancing an 84-year-old captive required tremendous effort. While struggling with the knob, the steady leak hit the exact same tile, generating those specific miniature splashes. Maneuvering through the narrow exit likely forced the victim's limp torso to bounce aggressively against his muscular back. A sudden chest compression could have easily forced a violent liquid cough, perfectly explaining that one bizarre anomaly prompting reporters to grill Dr. Valentine. The expert validated this dark theory as highly probable, then immediately dropped a massive bombshell that could bust this cold case open. Dangling a bleeding hostage backward over a collarbone practically guarantees an enormous amount of biological evidence would soak right into the assailant's rear jacket. Let that massive realization sink in. Frantic criminals scrubbing away their sins usually only wash the areas staring right back at them. Chests, knuckles, and boots get bleached spotless, but killers completely ignore their blind spots, oblivious to damning red stains soaked deep between their shoulder blades. Assuming this chilling hypothesis holds true, the phantom kidnapper walked away, wearing undeniable genetic proof he forgot to scrub, meaning the smoking gun still exists. That cursed garment might be rotting in a landfill, stuffed inside a dirty laundry bin, or hanging right inside someone's normal suburban closet. Tiny oversights put monsters behind bars. You simply cannot destroy the damning evidence you never knew you carried. A chilling mystery hits us immediately. How does an assault happen inside a bedroom, yet crimson stains exclusively materialize near the front doorway? Medical examiner Valentine clarified how folks constantly get this completely backward when analyzing crime scenes. Cops routinely spot crimson puddles and blindly assume the actual strike went down right there. Yet a fresh wound rarely leaks instantly. It takes precious moments for bodily fluids to pool. It requires minutes to breach the epidermis or soak through garments before eventually falling. Just recall whenever you have gotten hurt yourself. Often a noticeable lag exists between suffering harm and actually spotting red. Slicing open your thumb, for instance, frequently remains totally dry initially. Severe gashes frequently hemorrhage beneath the flesh before breaching the exterior. That exact logic fits perfectly here. The victim likely sustained harm near her mattress with garments or locks, initially soaking up the mess. While getting dragged across the residence, red fluid gathered. Upon reaching the main doorway, the sheer volume finally caused heavy droplets to fall. Honestly, this grim detail makes the sequence of events much more terrifying. This implies the attacker completely overpowered the woman beside her bed without spilling one visible drop. They hauled her across the property, bypassing the cooking area and navigating corridors, leaving zero messy trails. Gravity only pulled those dark beads downward once they approached the exterior threshold. Maintaining such flawless containment definitely does not happen by pure luck. We aren't looking at some heated emotional outburst or a frantic burglar freaking out mid-heist. We are clearly tracking a cold, calculated professional operating with chilling purpose. Insider network contacts claim the initial patrolman reaching the victim's residence on February 1st mistakenly assumed they were simply tracking down a lost senior citizen who casually strolled off. Maybe dementia played a role, they thought. However, seasoned detectives showing up instantly realized the grave reality, noticing the rear entryway gaping totally ajar rather than merely unlatched. Relatives of the victim previously informed law enforcement about her constant habit of leaving rear entryways completely unsecured. Throughout the Catalina foothills of Tucson, countless locals enjoy enough security to practice this routine. Yet a massive distinction exists between an unlatched knob and a gaping frame. An unsecured knob implies the barrier remains shut, but lacking a deadbolt meaning someone must physically twist the latch to discover its vulnerable state. Conversely, gaping ajar indicates the panel is swung completely outward, totally obvious to whoever steps foot on the property. As authorities breached the main foyer, their line of sight stretched entirely to the rear property line. That patio barrier was basically catching the breeze fully unhinged. These clues paint a vivid picture regarding the intruder's infiltration and escape routes. The culprit undoubtedly utilized that unsecured rear passage, fully aware of the homeowner's careless habits. The phantom navigated straight toward the sleeping quarters, restraining the elderly target so precisely that no immediate crimson splatters formed. Next, the suspect lugged her limp frame backward. Somewhere amidst that grim transit, the victim's wounds finally yielded enough volume to start leaking. Heavy red beads finally met the floorboards right by the main entryway. Pausing at the doorway to manipulate the handle, thick crimson fluid rapidly pooled up before the kidnapper shifted grips, crossed the frame, and marched toward the street. Those macabre droplets abruptly ceased right where a getaway automobile ordinarily waits idling. The frail victim was shoved inside the ride. This sudden shifting either redirected the hemorrhage or completely smothered the leaking wound. All leaking vanished alongside the captive. The forensic trail vividly narrates this exact nightmare, requiring zero eyewitness testimonies or internal security cameras to prove it. Tangible clues forge a clear map of spatial dominance and pacing, while simultaneously exposing a massive police oversight. Our medical expert hammered home a terrifying reality. Detectives exclusively uncover clues they actively hunt for. Approaching a crime zone harboring severely misguided assumptions guarantees investigators will blindly stroll past crucial hints detailing the actual nightmare. Did the initial task force sweeping the victim's residence truly comprehend they were staring at a meticulously orchestrated kidnapping? Were those agents actively scouring the sleeping quarters for microscopic clues, indicating exactly how the senior citizen got overpowered? Did the team dust countertops for microscopic particles capable of exposing how a phantom hauled an 84-year-old captive across the floor plan? Or did authorities just lazily presume a chaotic brawl occurred, desperately hunting for shattered belongings, flipped couches, and standard chaotic brawling markers? Authorities tragically surrendered the perimeter back to relatives roughly 30 hours following the initial vanishing. The expert faced direct questioning regarding that premature handover, and his fierce reply was definitive. Locking down that property forever would be my strategy, and the reasoning here is critically important. Throughout his storied career juggling roles as a lab geek and a hardened Connecticut State Police sleuth, our expert developed a unique sixth sense for categorizing criminal events. The Guthrie puzzle drops into an exceptionally scarce bucket. Tangible lab results are undeniably driving this entire manhunt forward. Typically, scientific swabbing simply backs up whatever narrative cops already pieced together using bystander gossip lineup identifications and basic motive hunting. Lab analysis usually hums along quietly validating police hunches. However, the expert wagers roughly 5 to 10% differ entirely. Biological traces become the ultimate compass, leaving task forces utterly stranded without them. Lacking any bystanders, glaring perpetrators, or obvious vendettas, physical crime scene remnants literally become the holy grail. When scientific proof reigns supreme, guarding the perimeter becomes a life or death mission. Cops must lock the zone down and analyze every millimeter with surgical precision. Teams must return repeatedly whenever fresh doubts pop up. This exact missing person file firmly belongs in that elite 5 to 10% category. Tangible clues act as the primary narrator here, meaning surrendering the perimeter after merely 30 hours likely destroy the chance to decode the full, unadulterated truth. Certain uncollected artifacts left rotting at the house might have possessed world-shattering importance for this entire manhunt. Imagine this Nancy's doormat just sat there for weeks, totally ignored by cops while reporters kept snapping pictures. Anyone walking up could clearly see the thing which Dr. Valentine noted might hold crucial forensic clues linking the attacker directly to the crime scene. Things like car carpet fibers, unique dirt particles, or tiny fragments left behind by footwear. Going through a rug like that requires incredibly tedious effort. You have to sift through countless bits of random outdoor trash, yet finding just one key strand or dirt clump could solve everything. Authorities should have bagged and tagged that item right away. But no, they left it outside to get ruined by the elements, random footsteps, and tampering. Even her smart doorbell mount was left hanging there way too long. The attacker ripped off the device, meaning his hands were all over that casing. If he held a flashlight in his teeth, his spit would have easily transferred onto his gloves, which means that DNA would then end up right on the plastic. Detectives finally grabbed the mount, but only after roughly 3 weeks had already passed. At that point, any biological traces were likely ruined. Dr. Valentine calls these amateur slip-ups permanent blunders born from severe stress, especially when juggling different police departments. Add the crazy stress from aggressive news coverage, not to mention dealing with extremely prominent relatives. This whole chaotic vibe practically forces detectives to act like they are making quick headway. They rush choices instead of taking it slow. According to Dr. Valentine, this kind of heat always breeds disaster. When reporters pressed Sheriff Nanos early on about potential do-overs, he actually confessed he felt bad about unsealing the property so fast. His exact words were that looking back, he definitely should have kept the area locked down longer, despite trusting his guys. He welcomed outside help with open arms, but admitted he rushed the reopening. Honestly, that is a flat-out confession that they cleared the perimeter way too early. Fast forward 52 days to his latest chat with News 4 Tucson, and the sheriff completely flipped his script, proudly stating he stands by his crew's work. He suddenly claims zero remorse over ditching the site so fast. His previous apologies completely vanished, replaced by this bold new stance that they did absolutely everything perfectly. Dr. Valentine dodged directly calling out this wild flip-flop, though his breakdown of how intense stress ruins police work basically says it all. Moving on to what those crimson stains actually reveal regarding Nancy's wounds, the amount shown in the pictures is definitely alarming, but hardly a massive pool. This frankly wasn't a fatal blow that would kill someone instantly without immediate medical help. Dr. Valentine played it safe with his rud. The victim definitely needed a doctor, yet she could absolutely survive this. Here's the kicker though, we have zero clue about any internal trauma she suffered that wouldn't bleed outwardly. Nobody really knows what went down once they dragged her away. Was she ever treated? Who knows? The splatter only proves she had a single bleeding gash in that exact moment, painting a very incomplete picture of the nightmare she actually endured. Savannah Guthrie recently told the press that the relatives just want to bury Nancy peacefully. Phrasing it like that makes it brutally obvious her loved ones assume she is dead. Meanwhile, Sheriff Nanos literally begged the kidnapper on camera during his latest sit-down, pleading with them to just drop her off at some random clinic or emergency room safely. He basically begged them to release her unharmed, which heavily implies the head cop thinks she could still be breathing. These completely clashing viewpoints perfectly capture the agonizing mystery that has plagued this investigation for 52 excruciating days. The crimson drops do not offer any real closure either. They simply confirm that during the abduction she sustained a nasty flesh wound that wasn't going to kill her right away. Whatever unfolded next remains a total mystery that forensics simply cannot solve. However, those scarlet droplets do expose one additional game-changing fact. The getaway ride absolutely has her DNA smeared inside it, a point Dr. Valentine stressed over and over again. The crimson path just vanishes dead in its tracks on the sidewalk, lining up perfectly with the theory that she was shoved into a car. Once they shifted her body weight from awkwardly carrying her into an actual seated or flat position, the open wound either stopped leaking onto the pavement or her attacker actively clamped down on the gash to prevent a bigger mess. Before that shift though, the dripping was uncontained, guaranteeing some definitely seeped straight into the getaway ride. This is a massive deal because scrubbing bodily fluids out of a car interior is nearly impossible. The average criminal usually calls it quits the second they stop seeing crimson stains on the upholstery. Yet the biological markers stick around permanently, remaining completely invisible to anyone's naked eye. Hit it with high-tech forensic chemicals though, and those hidden scrubbed-away traces will light up immediately. The suspect could have wasted half the night scrubbing with hardcore industrial bleach and harsh solvents. Yet scientists would still totally flag those latent stains. Those drops belong to Nancy, cementing her inside that exact ride during the exact moment she bled. Talk about a smoking gun linking the car and whoever casually drives it right to the kidnapping. Dr. Valentine's advice for the task force is simple. Hunt down that specific ride immediately. The fluid trails prove it is out there cruising around, packed with dirty secrets. Feds are already swarming Nancy's block, begging locals to hand over security tapes from those key nights. They are literally piecing together a traffic map, because finding that car makes everything a breeze swab for hidden drops match her profile and nail the bad guy. Yet 52 days have dragged by without a single suspect in cuffs or a known getaway car. From the outside looking in, this manhunt seems completely frozen. Dr. Valentine basically called this a bizarre waiting game, where the cops are desperately praying for lab results to finally steer them straight. Cold trails absolutely paralyze detectives. Hitting a brick wall for 52 agonizing days means the odds of cracking this mystery literally evaporate with each passing sunset. Yet another dark secret lurks in the shadows. Those crimson stains vividly unmask the exact psychological profile of the monster responsible. Perfectly vertical, completely unbroken scarlet droplets whisper a chilling truth: the perpetrator possessed an unnatural ice-cold composure. Panic never once clouded his mind. Bypassing a wild frenzy, the intruder simply slipped inside via an unlatched rear entrance. Stalking straight toward the sleeping quarters, he subdued his victim with zero obvious gore spilling onto the floorboards. Lugging her weight across the property required such calculated steps that leaking wounds formed perfectly round, downward-falling crimson pools. Pausing at the main entryway for quite a while, the suspect fumbled with the locks as a gruesome puddle expanded by his boots. Crossing the frame, he strolled down the path, maintaining that chilling rhythm, eventually dumping his hostage into a strategically parked getaway ride. Crimes of pure passion look totally different. we are tracking a meticulous architect who rehearses every variable and thoroughly dominates his environment. Caught on the porch lens around 1:47 in the morning, the disguised phantom deliberately angled his right side forward. Take veteran Rick Castigager boasting 46 years of gritty experience alongside the local county cops. He scrutinized the video feed and concluded, this predator perfectly memorized the surveillance blind spots, proving intense homework replaced chaotic improvisation. Invaders intimately familiar with digital security layouts never accidentally stumble upon optic angles during a felony. Criminals map out blinders during hardcore staking missions, assuming the digital footprint from January 11th holds true. Prowling actually occurred 3 weeks prior, 21 days spent obsessively tracking the target's daily habits. 3 whole weeks figuring out her unbolted rear latches. That gave him ample time to orchestrate the breach and getaway. Gory trails splattered across the interior, perfectly aligned with the chilling narrative captured by the porch lens. Premeditation drips from every clue. Shifting focus, we must acknowledge the sheer agony weighing down the relatives over these past 52 days. Relatives remain trapped in a waking nightmare, completely clueless whether their beloved matriarch survived, endured torture, or found tragic peace. Discovering fresh plasma pooled by the main door exponentially magnifies their grief, proving she sustained brutal injuries right inside her supposed sanctuary where she deserved total protection. Reliving the horror, her daughter tearfully recounted how the elderly woman vanished straight out from her sheets near midnight. Picturing an 84-year-old soul snatched from her ultimate haven truly sickens every person tracking this mystery. Forensic drops validate the grim theory the nightmare literally began right on her mattress. A phantom breached the perimeter. This shadow glided past the furniture, hauling a bleeding hostage straight toward the final exit. Finally, the assailant vanished with his prize. Desperate relatives are dangling a bounty soaring past $1.2 million for her survival. Federal agents launched a dedicated strike unit for this mystery. Meanwhile, local county deputies grind through the clues daily. Unfortunately, 52 days down the line, riddles heavily outnumber solid facts. That indoor crime scene gore merely solved one singular puzzle piece. Detectives finally pinpointed the exact location where her flesh first ruptured. They mapped the precise trajectory her bleeding body traveled toward open air. Stain trajectories strongly indicate she was hauled aloft in someone's arms rather than scraped across rugs or fleeing independently. Yet the most agonizing mysteries stubbornly persist. Where on earth is she? Which monster orchestrated the snatch, and why? The forensic expert dropped a massive truth bomb for observers. He noted that extreme stress constantly breeds sloppy mistakes during investigations, and those blunders invariably derail justice. Rushing to unlock the property just 30 hours into the hunt was baffling. Ignoring the bloody rug proved equally disastrous. Opting for blinding speed instead of surgical precision wrecked the timeline. Cops made horrible judgment calls beneath crushing celebrity pressure. Tremendous heat from a powerful dynasty and a ravenous press corps rattled the squad, sabotaging the hunt. Nearing day 52, we choke on the catastrophic ripple effects. A manhunt hinging on fragile microscopic clues was treated with reckless abandon, forever contaminating the narrative. Consequently, the inquiry sits completely paralyzed. Outlining his elite crime scene blueprint, the doctor emphasized immense patience. Stepping over the threshold means decoding how the resident uniquely arranged their very own private domestic universe. Discovering baseline habits is crucial. Which items look disturbed? The absolute secret weapon involves spotting tiny deviations from the everyday flow. Spotting weird anomalies remains totally impossible unless you first grasp boring routines. Achieving that clarity demands picking the environment apart with painful precision. Prowl through every hallway. Catalog every speck of dust. Allow silent artifacts to whisper their truth instead of projecting wild theories. Analyzing the mess mirrors, digesting a thick novel. Flipping straight to the final chapters guarantees you will completely misunderstand the heroes. Overlooking those tiny, foreshadowing moments robs the climax of its core logic. The exact same rigid philosophy governs violent incident reconstruction. Moving with cold precision is non-negotiable. Physical proof must always steer the ship. Jumping to hasty deductions leads straight nowhere. Regarding this specific tragedy, did detectives genuinely comb the master suite, hunting for hidden fingerprints of ruthless coercion, or nightstands rigorously dusted for clues? Did the squad actually comprehend they were battling a calculating phantom instead of pure chaos? Or did the blinding urge to generate immediate headlines force them to overlook the most vital puzzle pieces? Those answers remain elusive, though the expert strongly fears that abandoning the property within 30 measly hours proves public relations totally trumped basic scientific protocol. Rushing an investigation guarantees one terrible outcome. Crucial clues vanish into thin air. Justice slips away entirely. Yet amidst all this talk of crime scene protocols and police tactics, we must recall the most important fact: Nancy Guthrie isn't just a DNA sample or some academic puzzle. This isn't merely a riddle awaiting an answer. This is a beloved matriarch who poured 84 beautiful years into shaping her deeply cherished local neighborhood. Her days were filled with familiar habits and dear companions rooted firmly within a secure sanctuary alongside completely devoted relatives. 52 days back, this senior citizen dozed peacefully upstairs, completely unaware that an intruder would shortly breach those walls, drag her bleeding across the floorboards, and abduct her into the darkness. For 52 agonizing rotations of the sun, her heartbroken loved ones have endured pure torment, constantly wondering about her survival, her pain, and their chances of a reunion. Though Savannah Guthrie shows up bravely on morning broadcasts, daily viewers easily spot the crushing burden behind her eyes, a mix of deep sorrow, sheer panic, and relentless yearning for closure. Nancy's grandkids try moving forward, yet they now face a reality where their beloved Nana disappeared without a trace. Beyond the police files, an entire household lies in absolute ruins, suffering unimaginable trauma that simply multiplies with each passing silent sunrise. Those crimson stains found across Nancy's residence outline a partial narrative pinpointing exactly where the initial injury occurred while tracing the precise path of her terrifying forced relocation. The trail suggests the kidnapper operated with chilling precision and absolute composure, yet those drops remain utterly silent regarding her current location, her present condition, or the horrific motive driving this unknown monster's actions. The missing pieces of this puzzle remain hidden within the specific automobile carrying Nancy's DNA, or perhaps heavily stained garments discarded somewhere out of sight. Captured on undiscovered security cameras or locked away inside the dark psyche of the very villain who breached Nancy's sanctuary and completely decimated her kin. Over 52 excruciating days, everybody fixated endlessly on the blank spaces, the rumors, the wild guesses, the endless questions. Yet today, a crucial breakthrough finally emerged. Investigators mapped the biological traces left at Nancy's address, decoding the sinister formations to understand the attacker's calculated restraint. While this falls short of total resolution, it definitely provides an undeniably solid foundation of facts. In these wildly convoluted mysteries, absolutely every verified fact holds massive weight, pushing detectives slightly nearer to fully reconstructing that horrific evening. Each fresh discovery drastically increases the odds of triggering a memory that finally locates Nancy. These forensic markers form merely one chapter of Nancy's ordeal, a tragic tale demanding a complete conclusion. This narrative requires closure for both the victim and Savannah alongside a desperate clan enduring 52 agonizing days anticipating a resolution that might forever elude them. Should you agree that justice must prevail here, smash the subscribe button for Crime Uncovered, give this video a thumbs up for Nancy's grieving relatives, and sound off below. What are your theories regarding those fatal 16 minutes stretching from her mattress to the entryway? Here on Crime Uncovered, half-baked police work simply won't cut it, as we fiercely champion rigorous science and relentless advocacy for heartbroken households, seeking absolute justice for Nancy. In every tragedy, there is a lesson the living must never ignore. This story reminds us that safety, love, and human dignity should never be taken for granted, especially for the elderly who deserve not fear, but peace. Behind every headline is not just a case, but a mother, a neighbor, a life filled with memories, strength, and quiet value. What matters most is not only finding the truth, but also learning how deeply people need one another. A caring phone call, a watchful neighbor, a working camera, a stronger sense of community, these small acts can become the line between protection and heartbreak. We are often busy chasing our own lives, forgetting that someone nearby may be vulnerable, lonely, or in danger. This is also a lesson in compassion. We must resist turning suffering into entertainment. Instead, we should respond with empathy, responsibility, and a shared commitment to justice. Every person deserves to feel safe in their own home. Every family deserves answers, and every community has a duty to protect its most fragile members. When we choose kindness, vigilance, and solidarity, we do more than prevent loss, we honor life itself.